Good morning. It's a sunny and warm day here in Cranley, and I'd like to welcome you to my thought for the week. I'm going to begin by telling you about something very strange that happened to me when I was 13 years old. Well, you might not think it was particularly strange, but it was this. I won a school prize. I can't actually remember having won any other school prizes during my career there. And what happened in my school was that everybody who won a prize was asked to choose a book that they would like to receive. And that gave me quite a problem. What on earth was I going to choose? I thought, and in in the end, something popped into my head to do with a television drama series that I'd been watching in old black and white on the BBC. It was a series of programs about A Tale of Two Cities in several episodes. And I really enjoyed it. The story was gripping. And so I asked if I could have a copy of Dickens's book, The Tale of Two Cities. Nobody told me that for the average 13-year-old, reading Dickens might be quite a tough challenge. And so it proved to me. In fact, it was a long time before I got anywhere really with the book. But I did manage to look at the beginning, the first page, and it had the most amazing paragraph at the beginning, which I found to be completely mind-blowing and yet totally incomprehensible. I've got the book here with me. I'll just read you a little bit of it. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. And what really confused me was how could it possibly be both those things at the same time, the best of times and the worst of times? And that book, that paragraph, has come very much into my mind in recent weeks, all since COVID-19 began. The worst of times is not difficult to imagine. Every evening, Nikki and I sit down at 6 o'clock and listen to the news. And it's been terrible news. Every day we hear about hundreds of people dying, or millions of people who have lost their livelihoods and don't really know where they will go when it's all over. And then there are millions more, perhaps those who live in high-rise flats with no garden, nowhere easy to go to have fun and exercise with their children. Definitely the worst of times. But then on the other hand, it's been quieter, hasn't it? And the air is cleaner. I read that in some areas nitrogen dioxide levels have fallen to below 50% of what they were. And there are countless reports of people who say they've been noticing birdsong for the first time. I guess it's because the birds have less to compete with in terms of traffic noise and so on. And the dawn chorus doesn't just stop shortly after dawn, but it seems to go on right on into the morning. And there are more bees and butterflies and birds around. And not just those sort of things, but also animals, squirrels, foxes. Some people have even seen badgers for the first time in their gardens. And I'd like to show you this photo that Nikki took about a week ago. It's a photo, as you can see, of a nest box with blue tits going in and out. And what's so extraordinary about it is that we've had that nest box up there for 3 or 4 years now. And this is the first year that we've ever had it being used. Truly the best of times. And now here's another photo. This one was taken by me on the same day, as Nikki's photo, and it wouldn't be too hard for you to work out which of the two of us is the more gifted photographer. But my photo, although it looks very boring, shows a grey pipe going into a wall on the edge of our house. But if you look very carefully at the pipe, round the rim of it, you'll see there is a different colour, a different shade. And it's actually there because there's a hole in the wall. And the remarkable thing is that a pair of sparrows discovered this hole and have gone in and made a nest inside the wall. And every day we can hear little baby sparrows chirping and chirping. Inside the house we can hear it, and outside the house we can hear it. Now, did you know Jesus once spoke about sparrows? And I'm just going to read you what he said. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground outside your Father's care. And even the very hairs of your head are all numbered. So don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. Don't be afraid, Jesus said. Keep on trusting in me. Let the sound of the terrible 6 o'clock news fade away, and instead focus on the sound of the sparrows. We live on the southern edge of Cranley, and our garden, which is just over there, looks out over a farmer's field, and the field rises up to a wood at the top of the rise. And it's the flight path, the main flight path, just beyond, from Gatwick, perhaps a mile or so from our house. And there's a constant stream, normally, of planes flying backwards and forwards, off to America or returning back to Gatwick. But now, of course, there's less noise and less air pollution. But it doesn't mean that it's all good news. Lots and lots of British Airways staff, up to 12,000, have been made redundant or will be soon. Virgin Atlantic have suspended, temporarily at any rate, their operations flying out of Gatwick, and they're retiring their fleet of 747-400s. And I guess we probably all know someone whose job is at risk, someone in the airline industry whose job is at risk. So it is both simultaneously the best of times and the worst of times. Now, I've been reading a book about a 747, but I hasten to add it's not about aeroplanes. It's a book by the American Christian writer called Max Lucado, and its title is A Love Worth Giving. And in the book, he explores the depth and perfection of God's love for us. And he explores in it how we might reflect in our lives that same love, perhaps exhibiting it in forms like patience, kindness, forgiveness. So where does the 747 come in? Well, the key verse that Lucado bases the book on comes in Luke's Gospel, chapter 7, verse 47. And it comes at the end of the story that Luke tells of when Jesus was invited to a dinner party. But the trouble is, the party was gate-crashed by a woman of ill repute. And she comes into the dining area and goes straight over to where Jesus is sitting. And her behaviour brings the host, Simon the Pharisee, great embarrassment, and he begins to feel very angry. And then the woman gets down onto her knees on the floor, and she's crying as she grovels there. Her tears are raining down on Jesus' feet. She doesn't have a towel. So what does she do? She lets down her hair. Another embarrassing thing to do. And then she wipes his feet dry with her hair. So why did this woman do all this? Why did she come and gate crash? Well, it's probably because she knew somehow that despite her terrible past, she was loved and cared for by Jesus. He cared for her. Nothing was going to stop her showing her love in return. So let me read that verse, Luke 7, verse 47. Jesus said to Simon, I tell you, her sins, and they were many, have been forgiven, as her great love has shown. But whoever has been forgiven little, loves little. Whoever has been forgiven little, loves little. And his thesis, I guess, Lucado's thesis in the book, is this: if we have never really received God's love into our hearts and continue to receive it day by day, how can we show love to other people? How can we give what we have never received? The Epistle of John, the first epistle, expresses it beautifully. We love because God first loved us. Now, it's the second time that I've read that book. The first one was about 18 months ago, and I read it quite quickly. And when I finished, I decided that I really needed to read it again to get to grips with that message. And the wonderful thing about lockdown is that it's given me time to read it again and to work out how I can respond to it. And the message, of course, is a simple one: to help those people, those Christian people perhaps, who are working hard to manufacture love by force of their will. I'm meant to love my spouse. I'm meant to love my neighbour. I'm going to grit my teeth and try as hard as I can to do so. But trying by sheer force of will doesn't usually last very long, and it usually all ends in sadness. So the 747 principle. We need to receive God's love before we can give it to others. We love because God first loved us. Maybe there's something there for you to think about and ponder in the days ahead. But I'd like to stop there and give way to one of the great hymns of 30 years ago. It's all about God's love, and in particular, his love demonstrated by Christ as he died on the cross. How deep the Father's love for us. And hopefully, I'll be able to see some of you at the next Sunday virtual coffee time after the streamed service.
How deep the Father's love for us, how vast beyond all measure, that he should give his only Son to make a wretch his treasure. How great the pain of searing loss, the Father turns his face away, as wounds which mar the chosen one bring many sons to glory. Behold the man upon a cross, my sin upon his shoulders. Ashamed I hear my mocking voice call out among the scoffers. purpose. It was my sin that held him there until it was accomplished. His dying breath has brought me life. I know that it is finished. I will not boast in anything, no gifts, no power, no wisdom, but I will boast in Jesus Christ, his death and resurrection. Why should I gain from his reward? I cannot give an answer, but this I know with all my heart: his wounds have paid my ransom. Why should I gain from his reward?